that's another note. I'm not here to tell you how it is in the real world. I'm here to teach you this textbook AI CPA auditing. I'll definitely use references and examples from the real world, but I'm sure each of you listening has, if you've worked in audit, has a different experience. And hey, Nick, that's just not how it works. I know that's not how it works. That's the blessing and the curse of having real world experience. Sometimes it helps you, sometimes it hurts you. It helps you because you can reference it, and sometimes it hurts you is because, well, textbook accounting is not really how we do it in the real world sometimes. Let's take a look here. We've got a nice little chart. Always wonderful little charts. And this chart here, let's assess it. So if what's the status of internal control? How are we going to conduct our audit? Well, if internal control is there's no internal controls or it's very weak, our control risk is going to be high. It can be a number, or we can just assess it right qualitatively as high. Okay. What about performing tests of controls? Well, are we going to perform tests of controls? No, because there's not really any internal controls to test. I mean, in reality, sure, you'd probably test some controls, but this is under the assumption that you can't really test them. You're not relying upon them at all because they're just so weak. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to just account for that by doing the maximum amount of substantive testing. In this case, in this extreme, we're saying internal controls are either so negligible or just untrustworthy that we're just going to test, let's say everything for the entire year. We're going to test all of the transactions and account balances, keeping that audit risk formula stable. Now, what if we're in the middle? Okay, we've got some internal controls, and because of that, our control risk is medium. Yeah, sure, we're going to perform tests of controls, and then it's essentially just saying this is in the middle. Now, for the other extreme, if internal controls are super strong and reliable, we're going to assess control risk as low. Yes, we're going to perform tests of controls to make sure that they're strong, because we can't rely upon that. We need to do our own testing as an auditor and rely upon our own work. And then what about detection risk? Performing substantive procedures, also known as test of details. We're going to do minimal because we can rely upon internal controls. Granted, we test them. However, you still are always going to test material accounts and transactions. In general, anything material, you want to make sure you test it because we want to make sure, stay with me, the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Few more slides here. Having a good time. Hope you're having a good time as well. Let's keep powering through it and make it to the end. Now, this is taken from the AICPA's authoritative literature. I want to go over this here. Model, our audit risk formula right here. It expresses the general relationship of audit risk and the risks associated, the auditor's assessment of the risk and material misstatement, which we know is inherent in control risks, the risk that substantive tests of details and substantive analytical procedures. Now, this is a concept we'll see. We can have analytical procedures as just that, right? Something done during planning, which we don't do substantive procedures during planning, but there is such a thing as doing substantive analytical procedures. That is something we can do. We'll go over that in substantive testing and the analytical procedures lessons if you haven't seen them already. Right, would fail to detect a material misstatement that could occur in a relevant assertion. These are the management assertions of completeness, accuracy, valuation. Given that such misstatements occur and are not detected by the entity's controls, and of the allowable risk that material error will not be detected by the test of details, given that a material misstatement might occur in a relevant assertion and not be detected by internal control or substantive analytical procedures and other relative substantive procedures. This is a big word salad, a big blob. What's going on here? Take a second and read it. It really, this paragraph, I didn't write this. This is from the authoritative literature. Just wanted to include it here as additional reference. I know I just kind of read it and gave a little bit of background on some of the terms here, but just wanted to include that as an additional resource, but nothing that we haven't seen already. Here we go. Something, again, we've seen, but this is also, again, just from the AICPA's authoritative literature. I want you to know, I'm not just saying these things. These things are actually in the literature, right? The model is not intended to be a mathematical formula, like I said. So yes, you can apply the math there, but that's theoretical. And that's kind of just for your conceptual well-being, including all factors that may influence the assessment of audit risk. However, some auditors might find a model to be useful when planning for those risk levels. So you're not going to, it's not intended for that, but like I said, it's helpful to think about it like that in order to reduce the auditor's desired audit risk to an appropriate low level. Wrapping that up there, want to make sure that you see this is not me. It is me. This is coming from the real guidance. Wrapping it up here, we've got our diagram as promised. I would bring it back for you. Here we go. Let's recap everything we've seen, right? We know we're going to memorize that another name for the risk of material misstatement is inherent risk times control risk and vice versa. We can rewrite our audit risk formula, and we want to memorize what these each are. We want to memorize what we're going to do for each of these, that we can't do anything, that we're going to do tests of controls, that we're going to do substantive testing, also known as tests of details. Examples of each, right? Just examples of that. We'll go over this in internal control lesson, go over this in substantive testing lesson. Again, be familiar with this numbers concept, because you can use this numbers concept, the mathematical concept, for a lot of multiple choice questions. And I've done it myself, and I think it's very wonderful. Definitely take that into mind. And use this to answer lots of questions. The relationship between each, if this gets lowered, you can increase this. Want to maintain our theoretical number. I had a good time here. This is actually a much more brief lesson than a lot of the other ones, although it is one of my favorites, because once you get it, and it's a lot of free points for you. Free points are good points. They're just as worthwhile as points you got to work hard for. That being said, let's wrap it up here with a nice little summary. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.